Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey, hello there. Welcome to August 1. How the hell did that happen?
Came fast.
It came fast. Why is it? How come in the summer things go so fast? In the winter, the days crawl. It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. This is Kim Evert. She is the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania, a position no sane person would want. So I get
be right.
Yeah, right. I think we got that clear. If you were expecting me to talk about the debate, I'm not. I'm talking to Kim. The debate, here are my two takeaways. Joe Biden looks like an old, doddering man. I don't care. All the pundits are saying he did okay. He came back. What? That is not the face of the Democratic Party we want taking on Donald Trump. I am sorry. Jeez, I hope we figure that out, okay? And Kamala Harris did not have a good night. Just saying.
Yes.
And they spent most of their time savaging each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was kind of nasty.
It was. I mean, I guess the only good thing of that is then you see how capable they are of handling the savaging. Right. Because that's what Trump's going to throw at them if they're on a debate stage with them. So you do want to see somebody who doesn't get rattled, who gives as well as they take.
But he'll be throwing back every little detail they brought up from 50 years ago.
Well, that's
and use
the way
it against them. But yeah, that's the way it works. But
and I think you really need to take these debates away from CNN and MSNBC because they don't want what you and I, the voter, want. We want to hear what these people have to say, see them, do their thing. And CNN wants tension and drama and
right. They like that bickering and they want to pit them against each other.
That's right. Yeah. And then who won, who lost, all this kind of stuff. I mean, no, give it back to the League of Women Voters, okay? Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. And the other thing, what the hell was that thing at the beginning with flags and marching down aisles? It was like I was at a Boy Scout jamboree. What the hell was that? And what do they do it to see if someone will take a knee or something? I mean, what the hell?
To show they're patriotic.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Let's just go back to having them have to have a lapel pin with a flag, right?
Those days are gone.
Oh, man, I can't take it. Get it away from cable. Get it away from those people. I can't stand them. Okay, now.
You want to talk about Planned Parenthood?
Yes, I want to. All of it. Here, I want to. You've probably seen all this stuff, but Nicholas Kristof writes for the New York Times. I don't know, this was like a week or so ago. He went to West Virginia to visit the only Planned Parenthood, I guess, office there.
Office, right.
Right, there. And he talked to the women he was seeing go in. He sees a 20-year-old student who came in for a chlamydia test. Mm-hmm. That's a
very common
sexually transmitted disease.
Infection. Mm-hmm.
Okay, infection. And she had previously been treated and was coming up she was told to come back for a 3-month follow-up. Mm-hmm. She was told the test she would have to pay $94. And she said, but it didn't cost anything last time. Yeah. He said, well, times have changed.
We've lost our funding.
They've lost their funding. Yeah. So I'm sorry, we can't find out if you're disease-free unless you give us $94. She couldn't. She left. Okay? A 17-year-old girl arrived for a birth control injection, which she gets every 3 months. Mm-hmm. they couldn't give her injection. And I don't even understand this. It says under the new regulations, this is that thing you hear about the gag rule. Under the new regulations, the clinic could no longer use the contraceptives it had on site. So it was left to give her a prescription for the pill, which again she couldn't afford. So what is that about?
So the funding that we get is where we got. It is gone now. It's called Title X, and it's the National Family Planning Program. So it's been around since 1970. It's provided free services to people who below a certain income level. But another piece of that is it's a program that gives providers who have that funding access to discount pharmaceuticals.
I see.
Through the 340B program. And that's kind of a technicality, but it's a way, because you serve lower income folks, that you're able to access reduced cost drugs. And so when you lose your Title X funding,
you can't get those reduced.
You also lose your access to that funding unless you can get it through another program. And so we also have, we participate in the state sexually transmitted infection program, STD program. And so we were able to get 340B access through that program, so we could keep it.
You did an end run around, but are you saying that maybe this West Virginia clinic doesn't have
that program in West Virginia, and now does not have access because not every state has the program, and people have access to it.
I have something here that says Title X is the only federal program that provides funding specifically for preventive exams, birth control, cancer screenings, sexually transmitted disease testing, and treatment. Who's against any of that? It does not provide funding for abortion.
Right, that's correct. It never has. And I think I may have mentioned this before. In Pennsylvania, we are audited each year to make sure that none of the money that comes through these federal funds is used for abortion services.
So the impact of this gag rule, which is meant to bring you to your knees, that's what it's meant to do, right?
It is.
But
yes.
the consequence of it is women,
right,
especially women who live in poverty, women without insurance, women of color, can't access the most basic preventive health care.
But you also have to realize this is against Planned Parenthood, definitely an attack on us. But when you look at how this all unfolded, it is also a philosophical opposition to birth control. Because what the Trump-Pence administration did was fill HHS and the department that administers the family planning program with people who are opposed to sexuality education. They are really far-right religious conservatives who do not support birth control, who believe that you should have just natural family planning as the birth control method for everyone. Really conservative perspectives. And what they are doing is playing out their agenda.
That's
and
right.
They were able to take the gag rule because if you look at the new regulations, inserted in there now is anybody who takes this money also has to offer people fertility awareness methods or offer them. Even if someone says, I want an IUD, I want this method, I don't want to get pregnant, you still have to talk to them about
what?
Natural
not having
family planning.
sex?
Yes. Right.
Have you tried not having
Right.
sex?
Right.
Okay, here, this is from the New York Times from March. The Trump administration took an important step on Friday in its push to restrict access to contraception.
Right.
Excuse me. What? Huh? Contraception. Mm-hmm. Announcing it would give as much as $5 million in family planning funds to some thing called the Obria Group, which describes itself as being led by God. Mm-hmm. Oh,
yes.
All we've got here at Planned Parenthood is Kim Evert. This is led by God. Well, I'd give God the money before I give it to you.
Yeah, that's an organization that is
What?
a crisis pregnancy type center, and they are using the money to do fertility awareness and natural family planning, what they call natural, which is
The rhythm method.
Which I will say, if that is what someone wants to use,
Fine.
we also do offer, even now, if someone wants that method, we can talk with them about it and help them use that method. But it's not a method, it's not an exclusive method that as a family planning provider you should be offering, and you shouldn't have to offer it to people who don't want it.
The rhythm method, which the Catholic Church promulgates, even Catholics have, the vast majority of Catholics say, are you kidding me? I didn't want 12 children.
Yes.
I practice the rhythm
Yes.
method.
Well, and the frustrating thing is we see a lot of people who have lower incomes, who are uninsured, and who need access to services. And so when you send somebody like that to a place where they're now being offered a method that may or may not work, depending on how well they use it, they end up pregnant. These folks, of course, do not support abortion access, but neither do they support Medicaid for people who have lower incomes and need that money to raise their children. So you basically give people no options, right?
No, they're pro-life.
They're pro-life, but they're also, the Republican
Pro-miserable
Party
life.
is cutting back on Medicaid benefits.
Yeah.
You look at what's happening right now with, all the things in even the SNAP program and trying to take away those benefits. So, you can't have it both ways. You can't force women to be pregnant, take all benefits away.
And so they won't be able to feed the child that you...
It just makes no
pretty
sense.
much force them to have unless they want to go do a back alley abortion. This is a war on women. Make no mistake about it. A war on women. Here from Nicholas Kristof's column, Title 10 is an odd target because it is the gold standard of cost effectiveness.
Yes.
In 2010, a study found publicly funded family planning averted 2.2 million unintended pregnancies, 98,100 cases of chlamydia, and 3,600 something cases of cervical cancer.
Mm-hmm. It's a good point. This is a preventive care program as
Exactly.
well. So a lot of women who come to us don't have a primary care provider. They come to get their pap smear, breast exam, routine screening services, as well as access to birth control. And, I think, when you look at the numbers, the majority of Americans, 90-some% have used birth control at some point in their life. The support for this program is above 80%. So this isn't what the American people want. People recognize the value of contraception, but yet we are in this time that the forces to be, the people in power, can destroy a program that is so critical, particularly to people with lower incomes in our country.
I'm wondering, Kim, so this has gone into effect.
Yes.
Have you had people come who get their health care from you, come in, doing what they've always done? They want their this, they want their that. And you've had to have you had to tell them we can't do that for you anymore?
Well, one of the things that we've done, we started about 6 months ago raising money, knowing that this day would come and that it was likely with the new structure of the courts that we would not be able to get the injunctions that we needed and likely will not get this overturned.
So when let me just interrupt. So it used to be if some administration did something like this, Planned Parenthood and ACLU and others would immediately take them to court, seek an injunction, stop it, maybe then have it rolled back, reversed. But Trump, as we know, and Mitch McConnell, all they've been doing is packing the federal judiciary.
Exactly.
So now when Planned Parenthood or the ACLU go to those courts, they're finding themselves with these with these ideologues
Right.
in
Exactly.
robes
Exactly.
who are doing the political work of the Trump administration. So that was sort of a firewall. You relied on
The judicial system.
the judicial
Yes.
system,
Right.
And
It's changed. Yes.
and not for the better. Okay, I interrupted you.
Well, no, so recognizing that that was likely, we've been fundraising. And so we are trying to raise $1.2 million over 3 years that will replace the federal money so that we don't have to charge people for services they can't afford.
So unlike what Nicholas Kristof saw
Yes.
in West Virginia, when that young girl comes in, you don't have to say, I can't do it. I need $94.
Right.
You'll cover the cost.
We are for now, yes. And we've raised about 400,000 of the amount that we need. So we're getting there. It's possible that in another time, under a different administration, I guess it's probably likely that we would be able to be part of the Title X program again and the gag rule would go away. But it doesn't look like for the next couple years that that's going to be the case.
No.
And so,
And if Trump is reelected, it will be the case
it will be
for
the
the next 6 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And so at that point, I think $1.2 million can get us through the next 3 years as far as being able to continue to provide services free for people who need them, people that meet the qualifications. Beyond 3 years, I don't know.
Dear
if we're in
God.
that situation.
But so
we'll
this
figure it
is,
out.
Planned Parenthood is not this monolithic. So there's all the clinics that are scattered throughout the country and are fewer than and farther between than
Yes.
they've ever been. Each of them has to come up with their own game plan here. This is
Yes.
so the women who rely on you here in southwestern Pennsylvania are awfully lucky that you're attempting to make up the difference here.
Right.
That is not the case in a lot of Planned Parenthood
Right.
offices where they simply it's just not something that they're able to do.
Right. And some states, particularly like California, they have a state government that will backfill, or state of Washington. There are some states that have been able to do that. That hasn't happened in Pennsylvania, and certainly when you look at West Virginia and some of the southern states where they're very hostile to Planned Parenthood, that's never going to happen. So it is very much, as you said, a case-by-case situation. Each affiliate has a different situation to deal with based on where they're located, the population they serve, the wealth of the community around them. All those are factors that are affect this.
The organization that you run, Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania, has been around for 90 years.
Yes,
90 years. Stop and think about that. Yeah. Planned Parenthood has been around for 102 years. Think of that. Think of all the history that's unfolded and how now this organization that has been a godsend for so many women desirous of preventive health care, reproductive health care, might not survive in 2019.
Right, because of contraception, because of birth control. Yeah, opposition to basic services. And these are things they thought about.
They don't talk about birth control. The opponents. They don't really. That's not their thing. They use the abortion thing
as a cover.
But you have no doubt what they're really after is contraception.
I think not everybody, but for many. When you look at the platform of look how Republicans vote. They don't support access to contraception. So why wouldn't you? If you really believe that abortion should be wrong, wouldn't you want to make sure everybody had access to contraception?
So you weren't
See, so you would support
the mind
this.
boggles.
You would support comprehensive sexuality education. You would make sure people had the information and the tools that they need to be healthy and protect themselves.
Yeah. If you were truly opposed to abortion, if you thought it was akin to murder, then you would pull out all the stops to prevent women from getting themselves into a position where they want an abortion. They want to terminate a pregnancy that they didn't plan. So what would you do? You would make contraception, you would be handing out contraception on street corners because it saves lives and saves, I guess. Well, you know what?
Well,
It's not about, is this just a religious thing? That you're supposed to have sex only to procreate? Do you think that's where they're coming? Where are they coming from? Or they want to make white babies because they're afraid that white people are being...
Is it about
What?
women and women's role? And
Okay.
are women having too prominent of a role, taking away jobs from men? I think there's a lot of things that factor into it, but
It's so anti-woman. It's unbelievable.
yeah. And there are reasons that when you look at the issue of abortion, there are reasons that people end up having abortions, not just because they didn't have access to contraception. So, when you put it out there, there are issues of abuse, there's issues of race,
And
intimate partner violence.
And you know what else? Contraception doesn't always work.
And it doesn't always work.
Believe me. Yes.
But as
Yes.
sort of a fundamental, people need to have the ability to control their own fertility as a baseline. It shouldn't. I do believe that if you really are someone who thinks you should never have an abortion, then you should make sure people have access to contraception. But people need to be able to make their own decisions. People need to be able to decide if and when they're going to have children, regardless of whether you're rich or whether you're poor.
So the AMA, the American Medical Association, the Nurses Association, the everybody is so opposed to what they have done here because it inserts government. It inserts a bunch of friggin' white conservative men into the most intimate relationship between a doctor and his or her
Patient.
patient.
Yes.
How?
Well, the other thing it does, if you look at the guidelines, one of the things I mentioned was you have to, tell them about the fertility awareness. There's also a piece that you may not provide, promote, refer to, or support abortion when you're talking to your patient, so you can't give them a referral.
Well, wait. What if the patient says, "I can't have this baby"? What if the patient says, "I can't have this baby"?
Well, you would say, I can't refer you for abortion. I can give you a list of primary care providers in your community who may or may not provide abortion services. And that's the best I can do.
You can't help the patient.
No, because there are no primary care providers that do abortion services to begin with, just because how highly regulated it is, at least in Pennsylvania. And I think
So there
that's
are
true
no,
for this.
you can't go to doctor anybody
Right.
who will terminate a pregnancy
Right.
because the government has made it so onerous for anybody to provide that service that about only Planned Parenthood and a few others are willing to jump through the hoops.
Right. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And in most communities, even in Pennsylvania, you will not find anybody in your community that will provide an abortion for you.
So the gag rule makes the provider have to give totally unuseful,
Right. Misleading
information. So
Correct.
it must provide misinformation.
Yes.
We will give you a list of these private, and you're sending them on a wild goose chase.
Right.
What the hell?
Yes.
Who's to know what you say to them? You know what I'm saying? Who's to know?
No.
I say,
Well-
hey, by law, I have to, but here, let me get, really, who's to know?
Yeah, and that may happen. There are audits. There will be audits and those kinds of things. And what, of course, as Planned Parenthood, we have to be very vigilant and
Because they're waiting for you to do something like
right,
that.
and we can never comply or even agree to this. But you're right. There could be providers that say one thing and do another. But
what do you think?
but just the idea that they are telling doctors that they can't give patients the information they ask for puts them in a terrible position. I mean, that's unethical. What other procedure or service can you think of that you're telling doctors to basically lie to their patients, or at least not answer their questions of where they can get care and how they can get help?
Is this a First Amendment issue? Doesn't the doctor, the healthcare provider, have a right to freely speak?
Well,
I
you
don't
would
even
think,
understand this.
You know, this isn't the first go-round, though, for the gag rule. It was first introduced by Ronald Reagan in 1989, and it worked its way through the court. Now, it was a little bit different then. Some things have changed. This referral piece has changed, that, you know, you have to give them false information, basically. But it was upheld by the Supreme Court.
This is amazing. So the law now is that the provider has to give the patient false information. That's the law.
They can, but they cannot say you
They
can go
cannot
to Planned
give them
Parenthood.
the
You
information
can give them, right.
they want.
Right. Right. So that piece has changed. You know, there's also some things in here about information that you have to collect that, you know, perhaps is a HIPAA issue, and there's some things with the Affordable Care Act that talk about providing the same level of care to people regardless of their income. So there are things like that that are a little bit different, but I think at the end of the day, this was upheld, and it was not a free speech issue
since
then,
the
put it that way.
80s, the Republicans have been trying to do this. If Reagan was...
Well, you know, it was, and then by the time it got through the Supreme Court and everything, it came to the Clinton administration, and President Clinton, you know, did away with it. It did then go through other Republicans, George Bush, but it was never brought back because I think most people recognize how important contraception is. Even under Bush Jr.'s administration, they recognize the fact that contraception is important for people.
It's
Women need to have access.
2019.
Exactly.
You are sitting here arguing passionately that contraception's a good
Important.
idea.
Exactly. And, you know, as I said, it kind of went away, but now we're in a new day. I mean, there are new people in there who do not believe people should have access to contraception, especially if you're poor. So there you have it.
And who needs that more than someone who's poor? If you're poor and you already have some kids, you can't afford to care for another child.
Right.
And the same crowd that's doing this is scuttling the programs like SNAP that might help you. I mean, it's what you said.
Yes.
These people are just evil. I'm sorry, they're evil.
Yes. And then, of course, you know,
Excuse me.
talking about the judicial system, you know, you have the Supreme Court, of course, that the composition has changed.
The composition now is anti-Roe.
It is. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, and your feeling about what's going to happen with Roe v. Wade?
Well, you know, what we've seen across the country is so many different abortion bills that are being passed trying to ban abortion. Since 2019, there have been like 250 some pieces of legislation filed against abortion.
And the reason being because they want to get these to the court, Supreme Court.
26 of them have passed.
Okay, they want to get them to the Supreme Court and let the Supreme Court say, you know, Roe v. Wade was
decided wrongly, and we're going to change it.
So that's what the flurry of all these state laws, which are blatantly unconstitutional, given Roe v. Wade. They know that. They're just trying to get to the court. So I think a lot of people think the court doesn't have the will. They want to just flat out knock Roe v. Wade out. But what they are going to do is little by little make it almost impossible, right, to access abortion. Unless you're rich, of course, because rich people always can.
Nobody knows.
Or you live in California, or you live in New York.
They could turn it back to the states, you know.
Well, okay, okay. So then we live in a country in which, depending on where you live, you may or may not have the right to control your own reproductive life.
Yep. So now we're back to you may not have access
What would
to
happen
abortion.
here?
Right now in Pennsylvania, we have a couple laws in place that would go back to those laws. We have the Abortion Control Act that was.
Which is what? I mean, how will abortion?
It would be the regulations we currently work under. That's what we would.
Is abortion legal in Pennsylvania without Roe v. Wade?
Right now it is. It would go back to these rules. But if it is, based on state government, that can always change.
That's right, because all those guys in Harrisburg.
Right.
And if Tom Wolf ain't the governor and
Correct.
some Republican is, bango, there you go.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yes. So right now, though, we do have legislation on the books that dictates how we provide abortion services in Pennsylvania.
And they are onerous?
Well, they are, they are difficult, but we comply.
And but you've learned how.
They are difficult. They make it more expensive. They make it harder for women. They are barriers that do nothing to protect
Women's health.
Women's health.
But they're put there to try to hobble
it,
you. And these keep coming and coming and coming. Give me a for instance of something that Harrisburg has decided.
Well, the last piece of legislation was actually in 2011. That was when we got the ambulatory surgical regulations, and so now we all have to be surgical facilities. We did get some waivers so that not all of the facility requirements had to be put in place, but there are definitely more expensive things that you have to do to be able to be an abortion provider in Pennsylvania. That's also when
wait a minute.
the number of clinics
But aren't there
significantly.
places, I mean, where you can go to doctors' offices and essentially get a surgical procedure done if it's not
not an abortion, right?
If it's not an abortion. I mean,
right.
my God.
Right.
You can
Right.
you can
This
get
is
all
treated differently
but
because
this
it's abortion.
one procedure.
Correct.
They've decided for the health of the patient coming in,
Right.
you've got to be essentially a mini hospital.
Correct.
When it is also not the major thing that your service provides. So I just want to be clear that these laws are harassment. They have nothing to do with women's health.
The other law on the books is the Abortion Control Act, which was back in the 80s. And that is the one that says you have to have a 24-hour waiting period. So once you have to talk to a doctor and then wait at least 24 hours to get the procedure. It also has...
What's the impact on that of a woman who lives, let's say, somewhere in that middle of Pennsylvania and has to travel, 4 hours, if she has transportation?
Yeah. So it delays their procedure. They have to go through this it's a mandatory lecture that the doctors have to give them, and because it's not really informed consent, it's a mandatory lecture because there's a whole informed consent procedure that we go through that's much more relevant to the actual procedure. This lecture is more about telling them what else they can do besides have an abortion, but it just more delays, more expense, both for the provider as well as for the person seeking the procedure. And when you think about sort of, as you said, the patchwork that the country would be if Roe was overturned, you've got West Virginia, who did adopt a constitutional amendment that they wouldn't have abortion access if it gets turned back to the states.
So no woman in West Virginia would
Right.
have access. They'd be flooding across the border to you.
To us, or I'm not sure what's
Where? There's nothing in Kentucky.
Right, there's nothing
they'll be coming to you.
And then Ohio passed an abortion ban, a 6-week abortion ban. So that's essentially eliminating abortion in Ohio.
So people in Ohio are going to be coming your way. So is there planning, are we getting ahead of this so that the states that will be able to still provide, even under onerous conditions, pregnancy termination, would be, putting up clinics on, borders of other states? How are the, where do we...
I think all those things are going to have to be explored. Now, you do have, New York has very few restrictions. That's a state that has no parental consent. They have no 24-hour waiting period. And so that I would expect to be a state that lots of people would flood to. But, of course, it doesn't make sense for people who live way down south how does that work?
And again, because a lot of these people don't have the resources to do that. So I said the rich can always get on an airplane, fly to so-and-so, spend the money, which won't be,
it becomes a service for people who have privilege, who have money, who have insurance maybe, although a lot of insurance plans, particularly if you get it through the exchange in Pennsylvania, you don't get abortion coverage. So, it's spottier.
You mean through Obamacare you can't get it?
Well, in Pennsylvania, correct. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Not in Pennsylvania.
So
that's another piece of legislation that was passed here.
These guys, I'll tip my hat to them. They don't leave a stone unturned.
Yeah. And, they're still continuing here in Pennsylvania to pass legislation. There was a piece, there's always the ultrasound bills floating around. There's some defund Planned Parenthoods. There's the Down syndrome bill. So those are still out there. It's just right now, I think having Governor Wolf in office, there's not as much opportunity.
Here is a tweet I saw today from a woman who said, 7 states have banned abortion in 2019 alone. So maybe we could ask the possible, this is talking about, this subject never came up on any of the debates. So maybe we could ask the possible future president about what they would do to defend Roe v. Wade and expand abortion access. Are you concerned that the Democrats don't seem to be, or is it, well, again, it's CNN and the questioners that bring up these topics, but I don't hear much about this.
Yeah, I don't think
Is it best not to?
I don't know. I've heard all of the candidates at different times talk about this, and they all state
they're supportive.
They're supportive, yes. There's also the issue of the Hyde Amendment, which gets a little bit, and I think that Joe Biden had some back and forth on that. And the Hyde Amendment is the amendment.
He supported the Hyde Amendment.
He did. And then said he would again, and then now he says he wouldn't. But that is what cuts off Medicaid access for women seeking abortion services. And again, the people who are on Medicaid seeking abortion services are the poorest people in our country with the fewest resources.
War on poor women. War on women of color. War on poor children. On the poor elderly. Yeah. The Republicans only care about rich white people. That's it. I'm sorry, that's it. Rich white people who they think make the world go round. How long have you been doing this?
Oh, like 30 years.
Man, you don't look you don't look like it. I would look like the picture of Dorian Gray if I were. I would be like 30 years in the trenches.
But I don't know what it says about me, but it hasn't gotten better. It's gotten worse.
No, it's gotten worse.
It's definitely gotten worse.
And it ain't because of anything you've done.
Well, it's interesting. It's just a really difficult time. But I have to say, reproductive rights has never been more at risk. Truthfully, in my
never
time.
Been more at risk in your lifetime.
Yes,
and I'm older than you, and in my lifetime.
And even just as somebody who's worked in this field and been a service provider with a mission to give people access, it's never been harder. It's just there's so many barriers and so much difficulty, and so much political opposition.
And as you said, does this represent what the American people want? This direction?
It doesn't.
I mean, every poll, every
yes.
American people are not for this. What they're doing.
And when you even look at abortion access, the majority of American people don't want Roe to go away.
Right.
They recognize.
They might want things tightened or something, but they don't. Right. They want that there.
Right. And the American people do not want contraceptive access to go away. They recognize the importance of it. And, we have some really good, effective methods now. Really good. But
I wish I were fertile because now,
yes.
What you just can have something.
You can have an implant that is inserted in your arm.
And how long does that go?
I It used to be 3 years, but I think it's longer now. I think it could be 5.
I mean, I
years
was
or even
popping
7.
a pill a day in
Yeah.
the time when those pills were so overly
full of estrogen
full of
and-
hormones
yeah,
that
yeah.
probably have been really bad for my
They
health.
have definitely improved on that from the ones that came out
Oh.
in the earliest years. Yeah, they're better than
Those
that.
would be the ones I took.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
not
the
good.
IUDs. The IUD. Remember, there was a problem with the IUDs for a while with pelvic inflammatory
Right.
infections. Yeah. So now there are new IUDs that
Hey
are
guys,
much better.
guys, men, I got an idea. How about you guys stepping up and doing some of the contraception yourself?
You know, I just read an article talking about some of the different things that are being developed for men, so that they
won't
Yes.
do it.
Well, that's a different issue, but and this was from a global perspective of how do you address issues around population in the world and its impact on the environment, and talking about men need to be part of that solution, particularly in some of these other countries. Whether they will or not is
Think
another
of this.
story.
And
I know.
I've talked about this before. Think of this. One woman can get pregnant once in a 9-month period. In that same 9-month period, one man.
How many? How many?
Well, I don't know if he's a really busy kind of a guy.
I thought maybe you did the math.
No,
Like-
I don't know. I mean, if he's on Viagra and he's like, he could impregnate thousands.
Yeah.
He could create thousands of babies. But the one woman who it takes 9
Right.
months to
Right.
gestate this human being is the target, not the guys who are going around
Right.
shooting their sperm here and there.
Yeah, you're right.
Son of a bitch. Excuse me. And I don't know a woman who would trust.
Well, that is another issue.
Right,
Yeah.
Who would trust that? I mean, if
Yeah.
you're in a situation, you're maybe about to have some, and he says, "I got it covered."
Don't worry. Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry.
I'm on my pill.
I'm on the pill. I had a vasectomy. This. No woman in her right mind would trust.
Yeah. Well, that is the drawback. But just to say, it's out there as a strategy as well.
Oh, God. Okay, I've got a few other little questions here. There's these pills out there now that you can take that will finish off a pregnancy, right? There's medical abortion. Is that
Oh,
called
there is medical abortion, yeah.
Okay,
It's been-
so if Roe v. Wade goes away, would those pills would become illegal? How does that work?
It actually, for us in Pennsylvania, it follows the same abortion guidelines as far as it's regulated by the state. You have to go through the same, consent procedures and everything. There are companies in other countries that sell it, and it comes into the United States.
So again,
they have tried to stop that.
It can be black marketed.
Yes, they have tried to stop it. The last I read, the company said, no, we're not stopping it.
I
But
can't-
yes, it does follow the same
I just can't
rules.
believe that now what we're thinking of is, okay, so what are we going to do? It's like the Handmaid's Tale. What are we, okay, this is coming. Let's be proactive. What are we going to do when we go back to 1822? What are we going to do? There was this piece in did you see that a long time ago? New York
Yeah,
Times.
yeah.
New York Times showing
Yep.
Roe v. Wade goes away. You see all that? You see all that?
The patchwork.
That's women living in those areas, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just amazed. And I guess the president that we have really prevents us from focusing on an issue like this because it seems like nothing compared to the outrage du jour that comes
There's
out.
so many issues. Yes.
It's like whack-a-mole. It's like,
Well, and that's one of the things when I talk to people about that we've lost our funding a lot of people haven't heard that. It's not out
Nobody
in the media
knows.
much.
Right.
And, some people will say, oh, I thought you lost it 2 years ago. Because this has been since January 1, 2017, an ongoing theme to defund Planned Parenthood. Previously, it was a different pot of money. It was our Medicaid access. Now it's Title X funding that they have successfully taken away. But it's hard to get the word out because there's so much competition and there's so many things that this president has done that seem to get more visibility.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned this fact that you need to raise
$1.2 million.
1.2. To a deep-pocketed Republican, that's pocket change. You got any deep-pocketed Republicans out there who'd like to send Planned Parenthood $1.2 million?
That would be great. And just to add,
so what can people do? Okay, you do your thing.
Yeah, no, people can donate. I just wanted to add that for us, some of the communities that we're in, we're the only Title X provider. So, and these are the rural areas where you go to Johnstown, Cambria County. It's us. Somerset County, it's us. So if we're not there doing free services, you have what you have in West Virginia, people that essentially don't have access. And in some of these communities, there are lots and lots of people who depend on us for this care because there's just not a lot of wealth in those areas.
So in this big state of Pennsylvania, there's you, and then you have some satellite facilities.
We have satellite facilities, and then there are 2 other Planned Parenthood affiliates in the state that cover...
Just 2 others. So there's
2
just
others. So the 3 of us
huge...
cover the state, yes.
And they are what? One's in Philly?
One's in Philly, and the other is in Allentown, and it
Okay.
comes down into Harrisburg. So, yes. So it's a pretty wide area. And we don't have health centers in every county in Allegheny County, in
Like
Western Pennsylvania.
Southwestern Pennsylvania is your... And how many counties is that you...
We have 26 counties.
You have 26 counties
Right,
that you're
right.
supposed to be...
To do education, advocacy, and or medical services. Yes. So we don't do medical services. There are other providers that have Title X grants in other parts of the state. And I don't know which of those will comply with the gag rule and which won't. I haven't heard.
So who do you serve? Are they young people mostly, poor people mostly?
Yeah, about 65% of the people we serve have incomes below 150% of the poverty level, which is about $17,000, $18,000 a year.
They make $17,000 to $18,000 a year.
Or less. They tend to be younger. Between 18 and 28 is probably the majority of the people that we serve, although depending on the area. For example, when you go into Cambria County, we serve an older population as well. It skews much older because there just is good access to anything. Yeah. Less access to care in those communities. But 90% are female, 10% are men.
Now, I think people will be surprised to know that men go to Planned Parenthood.
Men do come to Planned Parenthood.
And why do they come to Planned Parenthood?
They come mostly for sexually transmitted disease testing and treatment. We do PrEP, which is pre-exposure prophylaxis for people who are at higher risk of getting HIV. So we have that medication, and so that also is part of what men seek at our organization, at our health clinics.
Yeah, I would think people are surprised to hear that.
Yeah.
And I think sex education, like how do you do that? How does Planned Parenthood provide that?
Well, so in our health centers, we do 2 things. So for our patients, we do a lot of education just around the methods, about STIs, all that sort of thing. We also, talk about drugs and alcohol. We talk about depression, and we now have behavioral health program. So for people who have issues with drug and alcohol, depression, some behavioral health issues, we have a professional on staff who can see them. And so that sort of...
So somebody comes into you and you have all of these basic...
We have all these basic services. So for most people, a lot of people come in and they want birth control and, they get STI testing, and that may or may not be an issue. So we do all the counseling. But we do screen for these other issues because we find that a lot of people do have things they need help with. And so we've added that component to it. But in addition to birth control, I mean, we do cancer screening services, and for women, it's very important: breast cancer, cervical cancer, all those kinds of things. We also are connected to a lot of different organizations in the community. So sometimes we find that patients have issues with, I don't know, the childcare or whatever it could be.
So you can refer people.
So
to...
our professional counselor.
So it's like
can
you've
assist
got
them with
so
those
you
things,
have like
referrals.
You've got all these counselors. So a person comes to you, and they might end up being educated about STD prevention, and then given referrals to somebody who can help them with.
Yeah, some treatment or whatever it is that they might need. Yeah.
So it's a pretty comprehensive.
Yes. I mean, we try to provide as many services as we can, and if we can't provide it, we try to connect people in the community with where they can get the help that they need.
Well, obviously, you're an evil organization,
We are evil.
and need to be destroyed.
Yeah, it's apparently.
So what's going to happen? I mean, is Planned Parenthood going to survive this? You've never seen anything quite like this, right? Onslaught, as you've said.
This is the most difficult political climate, I would say. And a climate that just doesn't match to what our patients want, what the community wants, what the population at large wants. And so that's the thing, this huge disconnect between what people want and what they say they want and what the politicians are actually doing.
And the politicians feel that nobody can connect the dots, and so they're going to, and I'm not sure they're not correct about that.
Well,
People don't seem, some woman in Cambria County who all of a sudden can access her health care through a Planned Parenthood facility is not necessarily going to hold Donald Trump or her Republican representative in Harrisburg responsible.
Right.
They're not connecting dots.
I know. That's the interesting thing. People tend to, if they like their local politician, they give them a pass for things. So that's challenging. But, for us, you ask what I thought the future was. I mean, we are very committed to keeping our doors open, continuing to serve people who need care, working as hard as we have to raise the money, to find the resources so that people, particularly people who are uninsured and need our services, have access to them. For someone who has insurance, nothing changes. They can obviously still come to us, and we have many people that have insurance.
What about a third of the people who come to you have insurance?
Have commercial insurance. We have another third that has Medicaid insurance, and then another third that's uninsured completely. And so the people
it's those
most
uninsured
vulnerable,
that third
most vulnerable.
are really going to get hit by this.
Yes.
And the Medicaid people already are hit in terms of not being able to access
abortion services.
But one wonders about contraception getting added to the mix before it's over too.
Yeah.
I mean, where we're heading.
I would say, right, with this administration, nobody knows. Anything is possible.
Well, I do want to say that never before, if you are somebody who supports the life-saving work that Planned Parenthood does, they need you. They need their allies now because the others, their enemies, are outside their doors on a daily basis. They control state legislatures. They are all over the federal judiciary now. They're in the White House. They're in the Congress. And if we don't stand with them, this over 100-year-old organization could finally have met its, match. I just, you've got to give. I mean, maybe you've given before, but this is people got to step up here.
We are hoping that people will step up and help. And I always like to remind, this is not for me. This is for the people that we serve. This is for people who don't have access, who don't have insurance, and need health care.
I just want to say, not for her. Boy, that's true. The people, I was privileged to serve on the board of Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania, and the staff at that place, mostly women, Mostly
True.
women.
It is mostly, yes,
Yeah.
it's true.
And they are the most amazing group of employees I have ever encountered. And it speaks well of your management. But who'd want to go work at a place where there are people outside threatening you every day? Who would want to go work at a place where the money ain't so good? I mean, with your skills, you could be making hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars somewhere. You've chosen not to do that. The other people at Planned Parenthood who work in development, who work in education, who work in all this, they all could be making more money. But there is this sense of the importance of
Yeah.
what you're offering.
Yeah, we have a wonderful staff.
Oh, my
And you
God.
know, the staff that provide health care are on the front lines at Planned Parenthood, have so much compassion and care so deeply for the people that they serve. It really is remarkable. And you know, it's not always easy. When you're in a job where you serve the community, there's, you know, can be lots of challenges and issues, but you know, people really believe in the work that they do, and they know that it makes a difference. And they see firsthand how it changes people's lives.
And so that
And
keeps
so
them.
that keeps them going, it keeps them committed, and it makes it worthwhile. It makes a difference.
You know, and again, I just want to say that in these times when you just feel so powerless and you're not sure where your energy should go, this is not a bad idea. Your local Planned Parenthood doing unbelievable work in horrible conditions in terms of the politics. And do you have family that worry about you, that say, I wish you didn't work there? I bet a lot of people wouldn't want their loved ones working there because of this threat of violence.
Yeah, well, I think my family's used to it.
But I mean, that's
My
gotta
family is
keep
used
some
to it.
people
You know,
away.
it can be a concern. Yes, it can be a concern for some people, for people's families.
It's not like people have not been injured and or killed by pro-life people.
Yeah. No, it is a concern, and it makes it harder. It makes it harder to recruit staff.
Yeah.
All those things. So,
Is your
but you know, people care very deeply about women
and their health.
Exactly.
And their
So-
integrity and their ability to care for their own selves without some man somewhere who doesn't know them, doesn't know their circumstances, deciding one size fits all and we're going to control all you women.
Yeah.
Dear.
And some people are good fighters. They, you know, just like you, they're going to fight back. They're not going to take that. So, you know, we have people that have a lot of courage, that have a lot of commitment, and, you know, don't want to back down.
Well, I can't thank you enough for the work you do. So if people want to give money, what's the best way to do it?
They can mail us a check.
Just mail them a check,
Or
that's
we're
all.
online. We have a website, which is ppwp.org. And on that website, you can find a place where you can make a donation to Planned Parenthood, which
Okay.
is probably the easiest way.
PPWP,
P.org.
Planned Parenthood, Western Pennsylvania.
.org.
.org. And it might soon be Planned Parenthood, Western Pennsylvania, Eastern Ohio, West Virginia, and who knows what else. God.
Well, yes, we continue fighting, hoping that's not going to be the case. But these are difficult times, and you know, even if we end up with a different president, different politicians, we have a Supreme Court now that has a composition that is going to be tough. It's going to be really difficult, not only for these issues, but for other issues that I think many people care deeply about.
Well said. Ladies and gentlemen, Kim Evert, President and CEO of Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania. Support it in any way you can. But frankly, right now, they need money. so that they can not disappoint some desperate woman coming for a chlamydia screening and being told, I know we did this for you before, but we can't anymore. You need to pay those bills.
Thank you, Lynn.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for having me on the
Bless
show.
you. Just bless you. Okay, you guys, that's it. That's it. See you Monday. Bye.
Thanks so much.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.